We are now only a few days away from the start of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend at Baku as F1 finally returns from the April break, and that means that it's time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing the upcoming Grand Prix using data from previous races, and then at the end of the video I'll be giving out my predictions for pole position and the top 5. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Currently, the vast majority of viewers are not subscribed to the channel, and if you're one of those, I would greatly appreciate it if you just tap that little sub button. Now, let's get to the video. Just before we get into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, let's take a quick look back at the data from the Australian Grand Prix, as it has been a while since that race happened, and let's see what we learned, which could be useful for this weekend. And note, we're going to be talking more about the likes of Mercedes, Aston Martin and Red Bull a little bit later on, so stick around for that. One of the characteristics of the Baku circuit is that it features a very long flat out blast in Sector 3 with a very long straight, and in Sector 1 there are a few long straights also. In Australia there was not only 4 DRS zones, but a lot of that circuit was a flat out blast, and as we saw from qualifying and the early stages of the race, this really helped the Williams team as Alex Albon in qualifying was able to for quite a while match the likes of Max Verstappen, despite the fact that the Williams is overall significantly slower than the Red Bull, and we can see that from the data here in Sector 2. Albon actually had an advantage over the Red Bull, and with how Sector 3 is in Baku, we could see something similar, and the Williams could have an alright weekend in Baku. However, with how technical Sector 2 is, their lack of downforce could really hurt in that particular section. The circuit for Williams is a tale of two halves. The lack of downforce and drag will help them a lot in Sector 1 and Sector 3, but it will critically hurt them in Sector 2. Another team that was fast in a straight line in Australia, but actually had good downforce, is the Alpine team. Alpine in Australia was both fast in a straight line and also very good through the corners, and Gasly had similar pace with Carlos Sainz as this graph here shows, which means that if Alpine get off to a good start in the race and they can stick with the faster cars ahead of them, there is a possibility that they could race one of the top 4 cars in Baku. And for Ferrari, Australia was a huge missed opportunity. Their pace, as this graph shows, was right up there with Aston Martin and Mercedes, but yet Ferrari walked away from the race with 0 points as Leclerc got involved in a lap 1 incident with Stroll that was more Charles' fault than Lance's, and Sainz got a penalty for the race restart incident. If they have a clear weekend for once this season, I really do think Ferrari should go well here. They have great downforce and have great top speed efficiency, which we can see with these graphs from previous races. Now let's get into the preview for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. This circuit is one of the most interesting circuits on the calendar, and it is not uncommon to see cars have vastly different setups due to the nature of the track. Some teams will opt for low downforce to get the maximum speed possible down the very long straights, but some teams will actually opt for a higher downforce package. With this higher downforce, they may be slightly slower in qualifying, but the higher downforce will pay dividends for them in the Grand Prix, with their car being more planted, which helps them look after the tyres and also help through Sector 2. Overtaking in Azerbaijan is not the easiest, as previous races have shown, and we can see that was the case last year, as last year's race there was only 23 on-track overtakes, which is less than the number of overtakes from the first 3 races last year also. This year we have seen an overall decrease in overtakes, so it will be interesting to see if that continues going forward, going into this race. Although I admit it will probably be a bit disappointing to see a race have less than 20 overtakes. To try and help increase overtakes, Pirelli are taking the C3, C4 and C5 compound of tyres, which is the softest tyres in the range that Pirelli bring. Now Pirelli did this last year, and we actually saw quite a few 2-stop strategies, as this graph shows, as last year there was a grand total of 26 pit stops, with the majority of front runners opting to do 2 stops instead of 1 stop, which is probably because of what happened in the 2021 race. With this in mind, I have a feeling that this race could also be a 2-stop race, as the drivers will be looking to use 1 set of mediums and 2 sets of hard tyres. Also, of course, this weekend is the first sprint race of the year, which of course is sure to throw up some kind of chaos in the sprint race. Now let's get to the top 3 teams, and let's start with the team in 3rd place, which is Mercedes. For Mercedes, each race seems to be getting a little bit better than the last, which for them is very positive news. Both Hamilton and Russell had brilliant pace in the race in Australia, and for Mercedes, it seems like things are set to move forward, with James Allison coming back to take on a bigger role in development of the Mercedes team. We could see some big changes coming later on in the year. Baku could be an interesting race for the team. Last year it was a difficult race for them, as the car did try to break Lewis Hamilton's spine. But this year the car is certainly better in pretty much every single area. In Australia, Hamilton was able to hold off Fernando Alonso, who was possibly faster overall, but couldn't do anything due to the Mercedes being faster in a straight line. As this graph shows, from qualifying in Australia, we can actually see Mercedes had very similar straight line speed as the Ferrari, and of course they were much faster than the Aston Martins. If they can maintain this going into the race, things could be looking very good for the Mercedes team. They are certainly faster right now than their closest rival Aston Martin in a straight line, which means they could opt to slightly increase downforce so that they can sacrifice some straight line performance but be better in sector 2 through the twisty section. Or of course they could opt for slightly lower downforce and try to maintain that performance in sector 2 but be decent in a straight line. That is of course the strategy Ferrari opted for last year, and it was working for them right up until Leclerc's power unit blew up. The question is though, what is going to happen between Hamilton and Russell? In Australia, it looked like there was tension starting to rise between the pair, as Hamilton was attacking Russell when Russell was expecting Hamilton to play rear gunner against Max Verstappen. It will be interesting to see if anything comes of that since that Grand Prix. Next up is Aston Martin, and for Aston Martin it was another strong Grand Prix last time out. However, there was one factor which really did affect them in a negative way, and that is their straight line speed deficiency. This was the first time really that their lack of straight line speed really hurt them, as Alonso was stuck behind Lewis Hamilton and there was nothing that Alonso could do. We can see that by looking at the telemetry between the two, they were trading fastest laps all race long. And if we take a look at their fastest laps, we can see that for the most part, Hamilton is faster in a straight line, and that is despite the fact that Hamilton is the lead car between the two, so Alonso has the benefit of a slipstream. This is really going to hurt them in Baku if they don't bring major changes. Based on what we have seen currently, their straight line speed is so poor that even though they will make up a lot of time in sector 2, they will lose massively in the first and third sector, and they will be overtaken by their rivals. Luckily, it seems they are bringing some major track-specific upgrades to increase their straight line speed, which could be similar to what we saw in Monza last year, and it is necessary because right now they are probably going to struggle to make it 4 podiums in a row. And finally we come to Red Bull, and what can we say? If there are no issues between the two cars, then this should be another strong race for them. Their straight line speed is difficult to match, and they could simply just increase downforce and still have a straight line speed advantage. Their efficiency in a straight line overall is unmatched, and to top it off, their DRS system drops more drag than their rivals, making them even faster in a straight line when it comes to qualifying. And when they need to overtake, of course, they can just blast past their rivals. Australia for Max was not the easiest race in the beginning, but once he got into the lead, things were not too difficult for him. He even had some time to do some lawn mowing and still maintain the lead. So let's get to the very early predictions, and for pole position, I am going to go for Max Verstappen. I simply can't really go for anyone else, let's be honest. But what about the top 5 in the main race? Well, for that, I'm going to go for something a little bit different. In P5, it will be Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. In P4, it'll be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. In P3, it will be Fernando Alonso. P2 will be George Russell, with Max Verstappen winning the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And the top midfield team will of course be Alpine. But that is what I think. The question is though, what do you guys think? Down below in the comments, let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.